I need you to close your eyes and picture this with me. You're 7 years old. It's Saturday afternoon in 1975. You're hungry, and Mama tells you to go down to the basement and get something out the deep freezer for dinner. You open that heavy lid, and cold air rushes up into your face, like opening a portal to another dimension. The smell hits you. Ice, old meat, something unidentifiable. And as your eyes adjust to the frost, you see things. Things that have been down there so long, you're not sure they're still food. Things wrapped in white butcher paper with dates from 2 years ago. Mystery packages with no labels. A whole ecosystem of frozen artifacts. And here's what nobody wants to talk about. That freezer wasn't just storing food. It was storing survival. It was storing hope. It was storing the gap between having enough and not having enough. I'm about to take you on an archaeological dig through that freezer. And what we find down there? It's going to tell you everything about how Black families survived in the 1970s. But I'm warning you right now, some of what's in there you won't believe. The government cheese casserole. Let's start with the crown jewel, the thing that was in every Black family's freezer, government cheese. But not just one block. No. If your family was smart, and Black families had to be smart, you had multiple blocks, stacked like orange bricks building a dairy fortress in the back corner. 5-pound blocks wrapped in that plain government wrapper with USDA stamped on it. And here's what you need to understand. That cheese wasn't just food. It was currency. It was security. It was the difference between having mac and cheese this month or not. Mama would get a block from the distribution center, and that thing would go straight into the deep freezer. Not the refrigerator freezer. That was for ice cubes and TV dinners. The deep freezer. The basement freezer. The chest freezer that hummed constantly in the corner like a mechanical heart keeping the family alive. You could freeze government cheese. It lasted months, maybe years if you needed it to. And when you pulled it out, let it thaw slow in the refrigerator, it was still good. Still melted perfect. Still made the best grilled cheese sandwich you ever tasted, even if you'd never admit that to your friends at school who had Kraft singles. But here's the thing nobody tells you about that freezer. Sometimes you'd open it, and there'd be cheese blocks you forgot about, buried under other things, discovered like orange treasure. Oh Lord, we got 2 more blocks down here. And that discovery? That was like finding money in your winter coat. That was survival math working in your favor for once. The Mystery Meat Archives. Now, let's talk about what I call the mystery meat zone. Every deep freezer had a section, usually the bottom, always the coldest part, where packages of meat lived, wrapped in white butcher paper, sometimes labeled in Mama's handwriting with a Sharpie. Pork chops, August 73, or chicken, ? That double question mark? That meant even she didn't know anymore. Because here's how it worked. When meat went on sale, and I mean sale, like 49 cents a pound, your parents bought it in bulk. Went to the butcher or the grocery store and bought everything they could afford. The butcher would wrap it in that thick white paper, tape it shut, and that package would go into the freezer as soon as you got home. The problem? After 6 months, a year, 2 years, everything looked the same. White frozen packages, all about the same size and shape, stacked and restacked every time you dug for something else. The labels got wet from condensation and fell off. The writing smeared. The tape gave up. So you'd pull out a package for dinner, let it thaw, and it was, surprise! Could be pork chops, could be chicken thighs, could be mystery beef that nobody remembered buying. You didn't know until it thawed. Dinner was an adventure. And the freezer burn? Oh, you learned to cook around that. Cut off the grayish parts. Season everything heavy. If it's been frozen for 3 years, it's going to need some help tasting like food. But wasting it? Never. You bought it, you're eating it, even if it predates your little brother. The bread situation. I need you to understand something about bread in Black households with deep freezers. You never ran out. Ever. Because bread was one of the few things that was cheap, and Mama knew it. When bread went on sale, and bread went on sale all the time, she'd buy 10, 12, 15 loaves. sometimes more if she found day-old bread at the bakery outlet for even cheaper. And every single loaf went straight into that freezer. You'd open the freezer, and there'd be a whole section that was just frozen loaves of Wonder Bread, stacked like logs. White bread, wheat bread, occasionally the fancy potato bread if it was on sale. All frozen solid, all waiting. And here's the genius of it. Frozen bread is immortal. It doesn't go stale. It doesn't mold. It just waits, patient as stone, until you need it. You take out a loaf the night before, let it thaw on the counter, and by morning, it's almost like fresh. Toast it, and you can't tell the difference at all. The freezer might have had bread from 6 months ago, a year ago, even longer. As long as it stayed frozen, it was good. And when times got really tight, when money ran out before the month did, that frozen bread was dinner. Toast with butter, toast with cinnamon sugar, toast with whatever you could put on toast, and you were grateful for it. But here's what I remember most. That feeling when you pulled out a loaf and it had ice crystals all through the bag. You'd see them shimmer in the light, and you'd know this bread had been down there a long time. But you'd thaw it anyway, because waste wasn't an option. Ever. The forgotten vegetables from the garden. If your family had any kind of garden, even a tiny one, just a few plants in the backyard, those vegetables ended up in the deep freezer. Except nobody really liked most of them, so they ended up at the very bottom, forgotten until spring cleaning. Green beans, blanched and frozen in plastic bags, corn cut off the cob, squash nobody wanted to eat, collard greens frozen in portions, tomatoes frozen whole, which doesn't even work right, but Grandmama tried anyway. Everything from that summer garden, preserved for winter, then preserved straight through winter into the next summer. You'd dig through the freezer looking for that government cheese, and you'd find a bag of green beans from 1972. The bag would be covered in frost, the beans inside frozen into a solid mass. And Mama would pull them out and say, "We need to eat these." But somehow, they'd end up going right back in. Because here's the truth. Those vegetables were insurance. They were there in case you needed them. In case times got so hard that even freezer-burned beans from 3 years ago looked good. They were the emergency reserve beneath the emergency reserve. But mostly, they were archaeology. They marked time. Every spring when you'd clean out the freezer, you'd find them and remember, "Oh yeah, that was the summer Granddaddy planted too much squash." The freezer held memories, frozen and forgotten. The half-used everything. Here's something that'll make you laugh and cry at the same time. Black families in the 1970s couldn't afford to waste anything, which meant the deep freezer became a graveyard for half-used things that might be useful someday. Half a stick of butter, wrapped in the original paper, frozen solid. Why? Because you can't waste half a stick of butter. Leftover bones from chicken or ham, saved for making soup stock someday. Except someday was always next month, next year, eventually never. That last cup of coffee from the pot, frozen in a plastic container because somebody read you could use it for something. Nobody remembered what, but it was frozen just in case. Odds and ends of lunch meat wrapped in foil, partial bags of frozen vegetables, the last handful of peas, the remaining corn kernels, all saved because throwing away food was practically sinful. And bacon grease. Oh Lord, the bacon grease. Saved in a coffee can, then frozen when the can got full. Why freeze bacon grease? Because you might need it someday. For what? Everything. Cooking, seasoning, survival. That grease was liquid gold, and you didn't throw away gold. This was the freezer's secret. It held not just food, but potential. Everything in there might be needed, might save the day, might stretch a meal one more time. The mystery casseroles. Every deep freezer had them. Aluminum pans covered in foil, contents unknown, frozen solid. Usually leftovers from Sunday dinner or a holiday meal. Mama would make too much, because you always made too much. Better too much than too little. And the extras would go into a pan, get covered, and descend into the freezer depths. The problem? After 3 months, 6 months, a year, you forgot what was in there. The foil didn't have labels. You'd pull one out, curious, and have to wait for it to thaw just to identify it. Sometimes it was a blessing. Oh, this is that good dressing from Thanksgiving. Sometimes it was a mystery. Is this potato salad? Please don't be potato salad. Frozen potato salad is a crime against food. And sometimes you'd find a casserole from so long ago that nobody remembered making it. It existed in a quantum state, simultaneously food and not food, until you thawed it and determined if it was still edible. Most times, you ate it anyway. Heated it up, added some hot sauce, said a prayer, and called it dinner. Because that's what you did. Food was precious, every bit of it. The ice cream that survived everything. But not everything in the freezer was about survival and struggle. Sometimes there was joy down there, hidden, precious, protected. Ice cream. Not the good ice cream from the store. That was gone in 2 days. I'm talking about the emergency ice cream, the backup ice cream. The ice cream Mama bought on sale and hid in the very back of the freezer, underneath everything else so the kids wouldn't find it. It would be there for months, waiting, getting freezer burn on the top layer. The carton would be covered in frost, but it was there. And when Mama decided it was time, maybe for a special occasion, maybe just because, she'd dig it out like buried treasure. You'd hear the freezer lid open, you'd hear the rummaging, and then you'd see her emerge with that frost-covered carton, and your heart would leap. Ice cream, from the depths, a miracle. The top layer would be freezer-burned and icy. You'd scoop that part out and throw it away, or eat it anyway if you were really hungry for ice cream. But underneath? Underneath was still good, still sweet, still exactly what you needed. That ice cream represented hope. It meant even in the struggle, there was still something sweet waiting, still something saved for when you needed it most. What the freezer really held. Here's what I need you to understand about that deep freezer in the basement or the garage. It wasn't just storing food. It was storing security in a world that offered black families very little security. That freezer meant you wouldn't starve, even if money ran out, even if the job ended, even if the check didn't come. As long as that freezer was full, even full of mystery meat and ancient bread and forgotten vegetables, you had resources, you had options, you had time. Our parents filled that freezer like building an ark. They didn't know when the next flood would come, but they knew it would come. And when it did, that freezer would keep the family floating. Every block of government cheese was a lifeline. Every frozen loaf of bread was insurance. Every mystery package of meat was hope wrapped in butcher paper. It wasn't hoarding. It was survival strategy perfected over generations of not having enough. What we lost. Today, people buy groceries 3 times a week. They order delivery. They throw away food that's past the date on the package, even though it's still good. They've never known what it's like to open a freezer and see not just food, but survival itself stored away. Those deep freezers are mostly gone now from black households. We've got refrigerator freezers with ice makers, but not that basement fortress. We don't buy in bulk the same way. We don't save and freeze and preserve like we had to. And maybe that's progress. Maybe having enough money to buy fresh food regularly is better. But something was lost too. That knowledge of stretching and saving. That creativity of making something from nothing. That security of knowing you had resources stocked away. That deep freezer taught us to think ahead, to prepare, to never waste, to survive. It was a classroom with frozen lessons about scarcity and abundance, about fear and hope, about making it through one more day, one more month, one more year. So yeah, you'd be shocked by what was in that freezer. But more than that, you'd be amazed by what it represented. And if you grew up with one, you know exactly what I mean. That freezer, that was love. Cold, frost-covered, full of mystery meat love. And we survived because of it.